Well, the red wave turned out to be a red ripple. Quite the disappointment. I know a lot of people started becoming deeply invested in politics in 2016, and it can be hard to remember back to times before then because it was such a huge shift. In the run up to this election, I couldn't help but think about 2012. In 2008, I was 17 and unable to vote against Obama, and he swept that election and started his reign of terror. And by the time 2012 rolled around, in my innocence and naivete, I was so sure that Obama would lose. And I had some precedent for that. In 2010, the Tea Party had earned Republicans massive gains, and I was sure that momentum would help kick Obama out. So on election night in 2012, I was heartbroken. That kind of defeat demands some examination. Of course, Mitt Romney was not the best candidate to beat Obama by any stretch of the imagination, but in my ignorance, I was sure that voters couldn't possibly look at how the country was doing after 4 years of an Obama administration and want 4 more years of it. But they did. That is a reality that I'm extremely uncomfortable with, but nevertheless have had to embrace as the truth. After 8 years of Obama was over, I was sure that Hillary would be wiped out by Donald Trump because she was basically Obama in a pantsuit, except more unlikable and more openly corrupt. It would have extended Obama's reign 4 more years, which was unthinkable to me. In 2016, she received more votes than Donald Trump by almost 3 million. So clearly there's a demand for this type of leadership. Well, let's flash forward to this election, and in the run-up, I see the right is engaging in the same wishful thinking that we saw in 2012, that a massive red tsunami was coming for the Democrats. But the reality on the ground, unfortunately, is that when faced with a vast array of very real and tangible quality of life differences, the American public is just not capable of voting rationally. Putting political issues aside, even if voters are faced with a choice between a brain-damaged vegetable and someone who is not, voters will still choose the wrong one. So in the refractory period after the excitement of election night, what do we make of the weak Republican showing? We have a couple of conclusions that we can come to after seeing this scenario play out multiple times now. For decades, as our country has circled the drain, conservatives have said that we are a silent majority, that most people do agree with us. They just don't vote and make themselves heard. But is that really the case? How, in every one of these races, do conservative candidates end up in dead heat with radical leftists with the track records they do? I feel like conservatives are as loud and boisterous as they've ever been. That conservative media that provides an alternative to liberal legacy media is as strong and far more impactful than it has ever been before. That conservatives have created environments where people can see the lies from the left in real time. And yet, despite all of that, every race is pretty much right down to the wire. So conclusion number 1 is that maybe we aren't the majority anymore. The other conclusion looks like this.
Feelings about the way things are going in the U.S. This is a bleak picture from this electorate. Look down here. 39% dissatisfied. 34% are downright angry. That's 73%. 3/4 of the electorate tell us they're dissatisfied or angry. Only 5% enthusiastic. 20% satisfied.
Those same people apparently went in and voted for the same dipshits that caused everything they hate. The only other conclusion that you can come to is that people are horrifically mentally retarded and they deserve every shitty thing that happens to them. We were told that Kathy Hochul was on the rocks and Lee Zeldin had a chance to change things in New York. That her stance on crime was going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, that New Yorkers who felt unsafe would have had enough and vote for Zeldin. And what happened? They voted in overwhelming numbers for Hochul. What other takeaway can I come away with other than people are stupid? So the next time you see crime waves, or someone getting raped or pushed onto the tracks, we shouldn't feel sorry for them because that's what they voted for. How, in a world where the Democrat president has approval numbers in the 30s, does his party do even remotely well in the midterms? We're talking about a Democrat Party that is more out of touch and more openly hateful than it has ever been before. It offers zero solutions. It creates almost all the problems. It mocks you, it hates you, it censors you, and in some sort of perverse Stockholm syndrome, the American public cannot get enough of it. We've been through BLM, COVID, an Afghanistan debacle, vaccine mandates, transgenderism. Schools have been exposed as the frauds they are. Biden gets in and immediately gets us financially invested in another war. We have the economy barely functioning in a way that can truly be felt by average, ordinary people. You couldn't visit your dying parent or grandparent in the hospital or go to their funeral, and yet none of that matters. None of that can get any race more than like 55-45 for most Republicans. What more does it take? How bad does it have to get? Is running on issues even an effective tactic that the right should be engaging in anymore? We can't even beat Democrats at their absolute worst. What happened tonight is what I was afraid of, and has been a familiar feeling for many election nights, and something that I've pondered about for a long time. At this point, voting as a solution to our problems feels like cramming for a test 20 minutes before that test is due. Massive propaganda infrastructure, combined with public education, mixed with an ever-growing number of people who work for the government or are dependent on the government, have created a degenerate population that cannot be depended on to vote responsibly in a democratic system. What seems to be happening is that there's a mixture of my two conclusions. Voters are incredibly stupid, and there's more of them than us. And that's America in 2022. Everyone and everything, including democracy itself, is retarded. All I know for sure is that our people are desperate and angry. I was recently at a town hall that my state senator was hosting, and even though most people were 100 years old, you could feel the anger in that room. People are sick and tired of what's happening to them and our country, and voting our way out of this predicament, as alluring as it might seem to be, is not our actual solution. Those boomers in that room don't realize that, but I'm hoping more people on the right start to see it in the near future. We need to refresh the web page of our mind and realize that what was doesn't exist anymore. And we need to work towards actual solutions that really do work, however off-putting they may seem at first. Anyways, that's all the time I've got for today. If you enjoyed this video and type of content, consider giving this video a like or maybe subscribing. I will see you all in the next video. Peace.